Welcome back to another episode of Life with Your Dog podcast. I'm your host, Panos and Agnostu. So today we're going to be talking about crate training. I've had various people asking me tips on crate training, when to start, how to do it, etc. So we're just going to delve right into it. I'm going to briefly go over it. We're not going to go into too much detail. However, I'm just going to give you my take on it, and if you're considering to crate train your dog, or if you already started, or if you haven't already, well then we're going to hopefully answer all your questions. So the first question is why? Why would we even consider doing a crate? Well, let's talk about what a crate is. There's maybe people not sure about what the definition of a crate is. A crate is a wiry box where your dog can sleep in and go inside of and stay there for a duration of time until we let them out. So there's a roof on it, there's all four sides or all six sides of the cube. It's usually rectangle, and there's different sizes as well. So that's what a crate is. It's not an exercise pen. An exercise pen is open at the top, so dogs can jump out of it, and it's a lot bigger than what a crate is. So why do we crate train? Well, first reason is we're using it for housebreaking. Housebreaking is about learning how to operate inside of our homes, and a lot of that is about toilet training. You can't just pee and poo wherever you like. So having a dog inside of the crate keeps them in that position. Now, inside of the crate, if you have a real small puppy, you may want to partition it so it's not too big, because if it's a massive area for a little pup, they can pee on one and poo on one side and then sleep on the other, where the idea of it is to keep it small enough where the dog's comfortable to sleep and can move around. There's certain dimensions that by law in your different states or territories where you're at may differ, but we're all humane people here, I'm assuming, if you listen to a dog training podcast. So we're not like cramming them into a small area. There's enough space for them to move around and do what they like within reason, but they're not too big where they can be comfortable with toileting in there. The idea of that is that if the dog or the puppy, if for that matter, poos in one spot, then they have to live in it for that time that they're in there. If we're sleeping, we don't know about it. So we're going to the whys and how to avoid that, obviously, but that's one reason for it. Also, you don't want too much space in there where they just start running around and having fun. One point of the crate is to keep your dog secure and calm in there. It's a place of rest. It's not a place for play. Hence why an exercise pen is called an exercise pen, because that's where they're allowed to run around and hang out. So toilet training is one main reason. We want management. We may want to be able to put our pup or our dog in an area so that if all the doors of the house have to be open one day, the plumber's over or the electrician, for example, and they need every single room in the house, for example, you've got your crate where your dog can be in. Safe, it's management. Also, if you're having a party, another place where it's a quiet room, if the dog knows what a crate is, it can go into its crate, it's relaxed, and then it can come out later in the party, or not at all, depending on the circumstances of that puppy. Dog. I'm talking about puppies, I mean dogs. This is not for any specific age crate training. And structure is also important of why we would do it. Structure is about having rituals and having routines in place while we're living with our dog, so that they know when it's on time and off time, when it's rest time and when we're going for walks. And if you treat your house like it's a playground and it's just always playing all the time, we may suffer the consequences later where our dogs choose not to listen to us, or we have to live in a mess because our dogs have torn everything to pieces and they're just carrying on. So good structure is important. And so, for example, you may have a dog that's fully well trained, knows what's going on, I'm going to rewind. I'll give you a real life example. A client of mine just had a baby. She has two dogs. The dogs fully know what the crate is. The dogs are going into the crate over night time. That's where they go to sleep. Two separate crates for two separate dogs. It's better, I believe. And having them there means that that's your sleep time. You sleep there. They're adult dogs. They sleep there for the whole 8 hours. In the morning, people wake up, let the dogs out to go to the toilet. They spend time outside. That's what happens. But now the babies come over, they're all a little bit unsure of what's going on when the baby's crying, and mom and dad are just adjusting to a new house, a new way of life for the first week and forever. So this was early days of when the baby came. And the question was, what do I do when the baby starts crying? Even when the dogs are outside, they start barking, they start carrying on. So one way to manage it and continuing with structure is that, when they're outside, they're still a little bit more managed, that's for sure. But when they're inside the house, it was all too much, and one of the dogs was a little bit unsure of the baby, and they were just too scared that maybe the dog may bite or the baby or whatever. So before we show them what to do when the dog's outside of the crate. What we do is we go, well, the crate's there. When it's time, when you're changing nappies, it's feeding time, to whatever, when you can't tend to the dogs and you choose to have them inside. All I did while we were there, because they've never done crate during the day, they just thought it was just a nighttime thing. Go on, in your crate, I think their command or to their bed or whatever it was. Dog ran into their crate, closed it, no cat. Their behavior changed. Not just that we managed them, they were still barking and carrying on. When they were outside of the crate, they were very unsure what to do. Oh, the baby's crying, and they're going up and sniffing and kind of like getting very agitated, and there was no set place for them to be. As soon as I told them to go into their crate, they went there, they laid down, I closed the door. I then brought them out, and throughout the training session, I'm not going to go into this, is that I bring them out individual in the lead, and we do our technique so we can start working on some desensitization and providing structure outside of the crate. But the point of why we use the crate in that situation is that if you're too busy and you got to keep the back door open, or it's not suitable for the dogs to be outside, you've got the crate there. It's awesome. And the dog can't bite anybody or jump on anybody or do anything because it's inside of its crate. And we're supposed to train it accordingly so they like to be in there, not that we're forcing them and making it an aversive place to be. Management as well, sorry, I forgot to cover that, was destructive behavior, especially if you've got a young dog and you live in an apartment. Living in an apartment with a dog, I think it's a no-brainer to start crate training. There's enough information out there now. It's becoming more mainstream. Use your crate, especially when you're inside an apartment. It just makes life so much easier. You will, however, at the beginning, maybe a couple of days, couple of weeks. I spoke to a client that lived in an apartment with a visualer. Up to 17 weeks old the puppy was until she finally would hang out in the crate for a decent amount of time. Now that's almost something like 10 weeks of being persistent, but they're going to reap 15 years of benefits of having the crate. So be persistent with it and make sure you're setting your dog and your pup up for success. We'll talk about how to do all of this in a moment. So while that puppy's or that dog's inside of the crate, it can't destroy your house. It can't pee on your lounge. It can't do all of the things that it would do that is undesirable to us. So crate training is really important for that. Just to say this, to make sure everyone understands that you can't just keep a dog in a crate forever. It's just not a very humane thing to do. It's not ethical. If you're going to crate train your dog at nighttime, 8 hours, we'll say that you sleep, then you shouldn't really crate train your dog when you go to work. Then you've got a lot of crate that's happening in your dog's life. If you crate train the dog at nighttime, but the dog was in the crate and you were doing my job, which means I was cruising around all day and my dog had a suitable place to have the crate inside of my truck, then what would happen is I can bring my dog out on an hour and a half, quick training session, empty out, have a bit of water, a bit of exercise, go back in. That could be appropriate, as long as you're fulfilling the dog's needs and you're not just letting it sit in a crate and going all stiff just in one spot. So that's very important. You shouldn't crate train your dog for very long durations of time without tending to. And I guess we're all tying together, but the next thing I have up there is when. When should we start? Well, as I said, you can start at a puppy. As soon as you start getting your pup, you can do it. You can even do it with a dog that you just rescued from the pound 3 weeks ago, and the dog's 3 years old. There's no real time. We just worked with a dog. His name's Rocky. He's a husky. He's 9 years old, and talking about not being able to teach old dogs new tricks, even though we've done a quick little Q&A on that a few months back, but you can, obviously, depending on if we're being appropriate or not. But that dog just started getting crate trained as well, because when he was outside at nighttime, he was getting a bit disturbed by the people upstairs having domestics, and there was a bit of drama, and you got a bit nervous by it. He just came into the